Yeah, so I think if you're doing that, then you know, you're probably fine.
Been
Hey,
watching you
Apocalypse
since the
Dawn!
beginning when you were going for the sales thing, printing big stuff and decided it wasn't worth it. Caught bits and pieces of you talking about being no money in 3D printing. Wondering if you'll take this opportunity to alienate half your audience and elaborate on why you think there's no money in
Yeah,
it.
take,
Thanks,
I will
Bane.
take any opportunity I can get to do that. Don, appreciate you being ride or die since the beginning. I think you're from the crypto channel too, and I will take any opportunity to be, maybe it's out of emotional expulsivity that I'm often talking about how there's no money in 3DP, and I really I want to talk about it quite a lot, but a lot of my peers do the 3DP for money sort of thing. I know a lot of my early viewers are from that because that's kind of how I was starting out. So I'm, you know, I tread lightly in that area, but I can't, and this is why I kind of quit doing crypto videos, is I can't talk about stuff that I don't believe in. It's not like I have some kind of moral standing on it. It's just I can't act. I can't be enthusiastic about it. I'm a good comedy actor, bar none, one of the best. I can't talk about stuff that I just don't believe in. Crypto mining, it's not worth it. You know, I could try to sling miners and stuff all day, but then I'm just kind of like, yeah, so this device is real good. You'll make a lot of money. Same thing with 3D printing. There's a whole host of factors that are going into it, and it's only accelerating. So if you're new, when I first started the 3D printing channel and videos, I started out trying to 3D print stuff and sell it, and that was from a crypto channel. I was 3D printing these shrouds that clip onto crypto miners, and you know, they help direct the airflow so you can overclock them and things like that. And there for a minute, you know, new miner would come out and I was starting to like actually sell them. And that's why I kept buying like the Cobra 2 Maxes. And I was like, oh my God, I'm selling so many of these things. And I've got this big warehouse. I've got a 5,000 square foot warehouse for my business. And there's a lot of unused space in there. You know, we're scaling rapidly in the beginning, and I was like, I need a big warehouse. And it turns out we don't need that much space. And so I was always like, you know, what else can I do with all this space? And I'm like, I know, I'll have all these 3D printers. And I started watching like Dance and 3D prints and like, you know, the model of subscribe to things profiles. And, you know, Dance has got like 100 something machines. I'm like, I could do that. And then I started doing the crypto shrouds, and then I started doing art stuff and all these various things. And I'd say the aha moment was not because of like low sales, because sales were never great. And I could have done a lot more. I could have done marketing and, you know, really pushed it. The aha moment was not during a period of low sales. It was during a period of like great sales. This kind of ties into a video I saw some weeks ago. I forget the channel name, I'm so sorry, but it was several weeks ago, and it was the title and thumbnail was "These 3D prints make money." And so I'm like, okay, I'll bite. Let's see what 3D prints make money. And the whole gist of the video is the guy's going through various, I think just Etsy listings of various 3D printed products. And somehow he had the sales figures. I don't know if he's using like some kind of third-party thing to pull that data in. And it was showing like the top revenue, because when you make a YouTube video, if you put money in the thumbnail or the title, it's going to get views. And it was like, you know, his examples were like, oh, this, you know, widget sold $100,000 in a year. And throughout the course of the video, it was all figures, you know, these big, you know, giant figures that would wow anybody, 50 grand, 7,500, 200K, whatever. But then if you look, it was like 8,000 units. Look, I get it. Right now, like, things are hard. I don't need to be in a bad state to understand that things are like hard for people. Like, everybody and their mother is trying to get into a side gig or working multiple jobs. Things are increasingly expensive. So people are primed up. They're looking for money. They're looking for side income or any ways to generate money and things like that. And so 3D printing is, you know, one of those things where they can make stuff and sell it on the internet. And I think a lot of companies are capitalizing on that and trying to like extract as much money as they can through Etsy platform fees, things like that. And again, dude, it's crazy to me. Like, I don't go to the grocery store often, but I go to the grocery store and I see a ribeye is like $40, and I'm like, how is anybody paying for that? How are they not just throwing out this food every day? 40 bucks for a ribeye. I mean, sure, it's Whole Foods, but you know, you get the idea. So basically, this guy's video, he was structuring it to, you know, attract views and attention and likes, and that's what I do. It's what everybody does. So it's like, you can do it, and that's just not something I could do. But looking through the examples, it was like, let's say that 100. I can't find the video. Let's bring it up here. Stupid calculator here. All right, so it was $100,000, and it was 8,000 units. That I do remember. So it was $12.50 per widget. And this is exactly what happened to me, because I got to that moment where there's like a ton of sales, and sales are really good relative to how it had been previously. And I'm packing and shipping all these things, and that's when I had the aha moment. I'm like, this just isn't worth it. The markup was, very generous, I feel, and I feel it was in line. I feel like if it went any higher, I was not going to get those sales, because I did have competitors. And for art stuff, that's all subjective, it depends on what people want to pay. But, for art stuff, I don't see like any long-term like stability for selling art prints. And not to get off on a tangent, but there's so many reasons with like 3D printing, especially. Like printers are getting better and better, and everybody can get one. Like the prices are going through the floor. So it costs basically nothing to produce a 3D print. Even if you design something, I feel like, a common trope in comments that I've seen is people who come in and say like, well, if you're the designer and you're selling designs, then that's better. I would agree that's better now. But I think eventually that's going to go away too, because, right now we have all these different AI platforms, and I don't really get into them too much, but I see a lot of content on it. And right now, things like Meshy, you feed it an image and it will spit something out that's kind of usable. And if you pay for the better version of Meshy or whatever other one is out there, you can get some pretty good stuff. Or things like Rodin, you can just describe what you want and it'll give you a pretty good model. It's not going to give you ultra specific, but it's going to give you a pretty good model. I'm wondering how long, with how fast everything is advancing, how long is it going to be until you can say to it, like, I really need a belt clip for this Project Source 25-foot tape measure. And you can you could just describe it in a text prompt to the AI or take a picture of it. And not only will it design it, but it'll just go ahead and send it to print. And then the complexity from there is, infinite. I need the bracket that fits this X and this Y, and I need to make them work together in this way, and it will just figure it out and do it. And so there's going to be a decreasing demand for designers, especially as you get more and more specific, because you're not going to find the parts that you need off the shelf. And then eventually, people are going to get 3D printing, and that's why I think, like in the media space, there is the long-term potential, because you can review printers, as new devices come out, because I believe everyone's going to end up with one of these things. Because like, especially with Bamboo Labs, they're no longer like a thing you have to tinker with. They just work out of the box. I mean, if anyone who's had a Bamboo machine knows it just works out of the box. It's ultra super user friendly, and it's only going to get more and more user friendly, because Bamboo's the 800-pound gorilla and everyone's chasing bamboo. And so it's going to get increasingly easier for normal people who don't want to tinker, who don't want to know about settings. It's just going to figure it out. And you could say, art stuff is subjective, and art inherently has no purpose, and so there will always be a demand for art stuff, and I agree with that. But there's so much slop and so much AI-generated stuff, you're going to be forever competing, and then how do you stand out? How do you prove your value to other people? Because I think a lot of people, when they buy art, they're buying it based on its perceived value or the exclusivity of it, and not so much how it makes them feel, which I think is how you're supposed to buy art. How many people out there own authentic pieces of art from artists that they have no idea who they are and they don't care about it, but they just buy it because it's a flex. It's kind of the same thing, or people just buy it for gifts, and at that point, they're not really putting thought into it. There's a million different sort of sub reasons you can go into there with the sort of the march of the AI thing, but I think ultimately and eventually, it's going to be something like, you might even just say, hey, Bamboo, print a bracket for XYZ to do this and that and the other. And it'll just start printing. It'll just go for it. And maybe there's like you have an AMS loaded up and it has ASA and ABS and PLA, and it'll just figure out what you actually need and it'll just go for it. And how are you going to compete with something like that? If people have that in their house ready to go, how are you going to stand out and say, like, well, no, buy this thing from me and then wait 4 days for it to get to you after you pay like 20 times what it would cost you to print it on your own. There's just no competition there. Going back to that video, the guy with the 8,000 units that made 100K, 8,000 units, that's 8,000 boxes, pieces of tape, shipping labels. How many clicks per order? At least 5. I mean, so that's 40,000 clicks over the course of a year. And 100K objectively is a lot of money. And I think for most people, it's probably worth it. But I think, in previous life, I worked underneath like a franchise structure, and I was commonly looking at franchises when I was like growing my business as like side projects and stuff like that. And the common thing that a lot of people say is like with franchises, you're buying yourself a job. And I think with a lot of these side hustles, you're kind of doing the same thing if you look at it. And like, sure, you can be your own boss, and it's like, you don't have to answer to anybody, and you're not at anyone else's mercy as to whether or not you get fired. But there's also a lot of drawbacks that come with that too. All right, so let's do the example here. So you have, or where were we? So a $12.50 per widget. That's revenue. That's money coming in. And so, well, let's actually just go with money, because that's ultimately the only thing that anyone really cares about. So I mean, like if you're doing let's say platform fees, Etsy, that's 15%. So times 0.15 minus, there's probably an easier way to get that. So you're now down to 85K, and again, this is a business, so you're going to be able to expense a lot of this stuff. I'm just going to say on a $12.50 widget, I'm just going to put your COGS at 0, because your filament cost on a $12.50 widget is probably next to 0. I'm not even going to try. And let's be generous here. So you have no COGS, and we're kind of going through the motions here of how the money is flowing to you, because obviously Etsy's going to take their cut first. Etsy or eBay or whoever, 15% I think is pretty reasonable. If it's on your own website, it's certainly going to be less, but you're going to be paying credit card fees, your monthly fee to the platform, whatever. I'm going to say 15%, because I think when I figured out my effective rate, it was like 12 something. So I'm going to figure in that, but I'll back out the COGS. You decide if it's too high or too low. You decide. All right, let's say that a $12 widget costs $4 to ship. So that's what, 32 grand. Let's make sure. Yeah, it's 32 grand. So when I was doing shipping, I never saw anything that was cheaper than like $4. Even if it was in like a bubble mailer, it was probably like $4. So let's roll that in. Again, you decide if it's higher or lower, and then when we get to the end, it'll be that much more easy for you to figure out whether or not it's worth it. It's a 53. Let's just say you're at 55K all in. 55K. That's after you paid your platform fee and your shipping fee. So you're at 55K. Let's figure in $1 for boxes, labels, tape, whatever. So $1 per item. Again, I think that's reasonable. You decide. If it's not, you're down to 47. And let's say, let's then factor in everyone's biggest expense. Yeah, you ask anybody on the street, what's your biggest expense? Let's say rent, car payment, food, my Netflix, my OnlyFans bill, whatever. It's taxes. It's always taxes for most everybody. So I'm going to put the effective rate at 25%. That's kind of like I think like the overall average for most people, because you're probably, at 100K in sales, you're probably not just, even if you're itemizing, I'm going to put it at 25. Again, you decide if it's higher, lower, up, down. 11,750 off of 47. So now you're at 35,250, let's say 35K. So you have 35K, you're netting 35K per year. So that's about $3 grand a month. Let's say 30 days. So you're about 97 bucks a day. So you're about 100 bucks a day that you're taking in. But really the point here, 100 bucks a day, oh, that's fantastic. The point is 8,000, okay, so 8,000 orders. That's 22 orders a day. Okay, every single day, more doesn't matter the day. You can't take Sundays off. Every single day, 22 orders every single day, 22 boxes, 22 pieces of tape, 22 print out your packing slip, 22 prints. How many $12.50 prints can you fit per printer? Probably a few for that price, I would imagine, but still, you're printing them, you're wrapping them up, you're packing them and putting them in the box. Shipping them, how many clicks to do the shipping label? Just a few, but you put the shipping label on the box, you assemble all the boxes. Now you're carrying 22 boxes to your car, driving it to the post office, dropping them off. How many hours per day does that take? But like 3 hours a day. Let's say that's reasonable to me. I think 3 hours per day, even if you like skip a day and you load it into the other day. This dealing with the printers. Factor in maintenance and all the associated ancillary sort of like costs associated with filling those orders. I'm going to say 3 hours. Again, only you're going to be, I'm just coming up off the top of my head. You're going to be the one to sort of make that determination. Like 3 hours, I could do that in 30 minutes. Like, okay, we'll do that every single day. Do it, prove me wrong. And if it is the case, does it make money? You have to ask that question. Does it make sense at the end of that? So $100 a day, you're making $30 an hour. You've just purchased yourself for 21 hours per week. You're making $100 a day. You have a very decently paying part-time job. But the real sort of issue that I kind of arrived at, and I think this is where a lot of people just sort of, their brain goes, I'm not thinking about that anymore, is the scaling. So you fill in 22 orders a day at 3 hours a day. Let's say you do it in 30 minutes. Do 40, do 60, do 100, do 200 a day. There's going to be a point where you can't do it, and you're going to have to hire somebody. And originally, when I was like putting together a video like this, like, saying like, 3D printing is not worth it, and here's why. I kind of made like a picture of someone walking up the steps symbolizing, growing your business. And then, eventually you arrive at a big gap. And that gap symbolizes, or is metaphorical for, a visual device for, either hiring an employee, quitting your job, taking out a loan, leasing commercial space, any number of things that you're going to have to do to scale it. I think in 3D printing, there's a ceiling. And that ceiling is very tough to break through, and you're going to have to take on a massive amount of risk to do it. And I'd say with a lot of businesses, that's the case. A lot of businesses, you have to do that. You have to get to that point. I did it when my business was growing, and I was like, okay, I just got to quit my job. And it was very difficult to do because that's consistent income, and you're rolling the dice, you're taking a risk, and it worked out. But for something like 3D printing, with all these other factors going on, with the rate of advancement, the race to the bottom on pricing, and the fact that there is no barrier to entry in this. Anybody can get a Bamboo machine and download a model and start printing it. Well, they can't design the thing and they can't offer the customer service. You go rah-rah yourself. I mean, just get real. I don't want you to just blow all your money and end up in a bad situation. Just be a pragmatist for a second. There's a ceiling, and if you've ever hired an employee, and a real employee, and I've said before, like, it feels wrong to say this, but like, I don't consider a business to be a real business until you have like proper employees, because it's just a whole other world when you start to hire people and you have like all the liabilities that come along with that. And employees, they're not going to care about your businesses like you do, and they shouldn't operate that way. They're only going to output a certain amount, and it's not going to be to your level of efficiency at all. And so you have to know that going in. Plus, when you hire them on, all that profit that you were making, gone. Well, maybe not gone, again, depending on your profitability. It's going to take a big bite out of it. And then if you're hiring a proper employee, you're going to have them come work in your garage? Maybe, I guess. Do you have free slave labor from your kids? Maybe. But hiring a real employee, you're going to lease a commercial space. Do you have workers' comp insurance? Do you have general liability insurance, product insurance, electricity, data, whatever? It adds up, and it adds up so fast. There's a million and one things that people don't think about. And when people think about starting their business, they think about the exciting things. And maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. Keep yourself motivated. But a lot of people get hung up in like the fun stuff. Like if they're opening a restaurant, they'll think about, oh, I'm going to have a menu, and I'm going to have this decor, and I'm going to have this chairs. When you should be thinking about, okay, how am I going to finance the ovens? Those are the questions that you really need to be working on if you're doing that, versus like all the fun stuff. So you got to do a mix of both, but it's a lot of like the boring stuff that is really the make or break. And so I think that if you're on fixed income for any reason, like you're on disability, or you're elderly and you're on Social Security or something like that, you can't work, you can't leave home. Like maybe you care for a parent or something like that. You really can't leave home, and you can only do like side hustle-y type stuff. Then yeah, absolutely, like go for it, because your time is cheap. So ask yourself, is my time cheap? If you're making $500,000 a year at your job, does it really make sense for you to like carve out your time and your attention and your focus to work on a side hustle that makes $30 an hour? Probably not. Now if it's if you're fixed income, or if it's a hobby, like it's a passion thing, like I just really love selling these things that I design and print, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're kind of like getting away from the whole, I'm doing this to generate income so I can like improve my life or whatever. Yeah, those are those, absolutely. And I hesitate to talk about this because so many of my peers do this, and this is not me throwing shade at all. I think media is a huge component, because media is eternal, and when you make a banger video, That's going to pay for years potentially. When I did the crypto channel, I did some video about a hydroelectric dam thing. It got like 250,000 views. I had nothing to do with cryptocurrency, but you know, it hit, and that's why I think media is a huge thing. But like, I do get worried that my peers who are doing the 3D print to sell thing are like, you know, maybe taking. It's not. It's just, for me, in my assessment, it's just not worth it for most people. You know, I think you're going to end up spending too much money, and you're never going to get the return. And it grows so fast that you're just going to flounder. And I see more people agreeing with me when I talk about that than people trying to fight me on it in comments. And I don't know if that's just because people are generally nice. I don't know why. You can be mean to me. But you know, maybe I'm onto something there. Maybe people do it and then realize, like, you know, it's kind of not worth it. It's kind of like, you know, I thought I could do it. I thought I could, you know, break the mold and be the exception, but I'm not seeing it. And I'm not to say, again, there's money to be made there. Like people printing prosthetics or really, you know, specific type things. People that print firearms, I don't know if the people sell those things. But there's money to be made, but I think it's more rare. It's certainly the exception, not the rule. And if you go into it thinking like, I'm going to be the exception, then exercise caution, be the pragmatist for a little bit. But I just can't promote it. I can't make those videos where it's like, oh yeah, these people that say there's no money in 3D printing, they're wrong. Let me show you how you're going to make $100,000. And then it's like, join my program, join my platform, join my Thangs profile. Let me extract some money out of you while I'm telling you all the time, like, oh, yep, just a little bit more. That's a great model. It works. It makes money. I can't do it. Not because I'm some kind of moral paragon or anything. I just can't act. I can't fake the enthusiasm because I'm a spoiled brat. I have to actually be excited about stuff before I can, you know, kind of really like convey it. And it's not there. Good products don't need to be sold. Good businesses don't need to be promoted, I guess. You know, why would people promote something that's profitable? Why would they want more competition? Well, it's because most people just aren't going to take the initiative and do it. And I don't care, because I'm going to talk about it, because I'm going to go, okay, yeah, save it. You know, because eventually, again, things are hard. Economy's hard. People sell slinky dragons or fidgets or things like that. Like, maybe there is some longevity to it. Maybe because I'm a grown up, that I'm not seeing the appeal of it. But even as a kid, if I got that, I'd be like, oh, thanks. You know, it doesn't do anything. It just looks cool. I'm like, maybe for a toddler or something. But with how bad things are, you know, with the prices of inflation going up and, you know, the gap increasing, eventually people are going to get to the point where it's like, okay, this week, am I going to be able to afford a bag of Mahatma white rice? Or am I going to be able to afford a $35 Slinky Dragon on Etsy or at the farmer's market? What do? Again, I'm not throwing shade at all. I know there are plenty of people that do it, and it's just, yeah, it's not something I'm going to promote. And again, I can't help but think maybe because there's a compulsion on my end to do the 3DP for sales thing, because sponsors want you to do it. You know, a lot of my peers do it. It gets views, and so I can't. Maybe it's just in the back of my head gnawing at me, like, you know, you really should promote. You can do it too. And maybe that's why it comes out in an expulsive way, or, you know, people in the comments, you know, doing it. But, you know, I see on the horizon, I just see like the march of things getting easier, and the more people that get into it and think that they can do it, well, you know, there's gonna be someone out there who tries to buck the trend, gets a bunch of bamboos and starts printing a bunch of things off of Thang's profile, and then he's not gonna get sales, and then he's gonna look at this massive farm that he built out, and he's gonna say, I guess I could afford to make 10 cents less per widget. It's the same exact widget as everybody else is printing. And then it's back and forth. It's nuclear war on pricing until it's just not worth it. And then he drops out, and then another one comes in. And what's that product? You know, what's that product that has longevity, that has legs to get you there? Because if you are perpetually required to come up with a brand new hitter product constantly to outrun the people who are copying you or using the same file or whatever, that's just no way to operate, because you're going to have to focus on all the other things for your business. And, you know, it's like, you know, you go into a roulette type, like, well, you know, if you can be profitable, you just have to hit black every single time. It's just no way to run it. And that's, I just don't see it there. So I know that was long-winded. Apocalypse Dawn, thank you for the $20 again. And if you made it your way through this video, I actually talked to Apocalypse Dawn, and he asked me about this video because I mentioned I was going to make it several times about how I don't think there's money in 3D printing, but I've been very hesitant, and I shot it several times. And so I had the idea, what if I make it like a fake stream and then I just go on this rant, and that way it's sort of like less deliberate. I was just caught in sort of a candid, off the cuff, out of pocket moment when I was talking about how there's no money in 3D printing. And so I'll set it up and frame it like that, completely dishonest. This is not actually a stream. I'm just recording this with a fake Twitch overlay, and I put someone else's Twitch chat off in the corner of my monitor there to give people, again, the idea that maybe he is streaming. So anyway, that's my take on why 3D printing doesn't make money. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to like the video because it's a nice thing to do. And of course, subscribe for more content like this. I'm the Technicals. See you next time.